I am 104 years old, and I need you to understand something before I run out of breath one day and can no longer say it. I did not become poor at the end of my life. I became poor in the middle of it, and I didn't even notice. At 104, you wake up every morning aware that the margin is thin. I do not buy green bananas anymore. I do not plan for next summer. I sit in a chair by the window and watch light move across the floor, and I think about what I traded for things that no longer exist. People assume that living this long means you've won something. They are wrong. Living this long means you have had more time to see what you lost. I buried my husband. I buried friends who once filled my kitchen with laughter. I buried a sister who used to braid my hair on the front steps. I stood beside small graves and large ones. And after the casseroles stopped coming and the sympathy cards stopped arriving, I was left alone with a realization that shook me harder than any funeral ever did. I was never short on money. I was short on time, and I spent it carelessly. When I was a young woman, I believed what sensible people believe, that life was something you built carefully, brick by brick, that security came first, that love would wait, that children would understand, that there would always be another Sunday. I worked in accounting. Numbers made sense to me. They lined up neatly. If something didn't balance, you stayed late until it did. I liked that certainty. I liked that effort produced visible results. So I gave my effort there. I had a husband who was patient in ways I did not fully appreciate at the time. I had 2 children who once reached for my hands without hesitation. We lived in a modest house on Maple Street. The kitchen tiles were chipped. The backyard sloped slightly to the left. In spring, the lilac bush by the fence would bloom so heavily. The air felt thick with sweetness. I remember standing at the sink one evening, sleeves rolled up, listening to my daughter practicing her spelling words at the table. I also remember glancing at the clock and calculating how much work I would need to finish after they went to bed. I was always calculating time, money, advancement, efficiency. I told myself I was doing it for them. When my son tugged at my skirt and asked if I could come outside to watch him ride his bicycle without training wheels, I said, "In a minute, there are minutes that never return." He learned without me. I saw the scraped knee later. I did not see the first steady stretch down the sidewalk. In my 40s, the promotions came. The office moved me into a corner room with a window. I remember the pride in my chest the first time someone called me partner. I had earned it. No one could say otherwise. We moved into a larger house, hardwood floors that shined under afternoon sun, a dining room big enough to host holidays. I stood in that empty living room with a key in my hand and thought, I have done well. My husband stood beside me, quiet. He was proud too, but there was something in his eyes I did not pause long enough to read. The children grew. Their schedules filled. Mine overflowed. I missed a school play because of a client meeting that could not be rescheduled. I missed a parent-teacher conference because I was traveling for work. I promised I would make the next one. There was always a next one until there wasn't. The distance between my husband and me did not arrive with a fight. It arrived in small omissions, separate conversations, evenings where we both sat in the same room, but inside different worlds. One night, after the children were grown and the house felt too big for 4 plates at the table, he said very softly, I feel like I lost you somewhere. I remember laughing lightly, dismissively. I'm right here, I said, but I wasn't, not in the ways that mattered. When he fell ill at 63, everything slowed in an instant. The hospital corridors were too bright. The chairs in the waiting room were unforgiving. I held his hand and watched machines measure what I could not control. We had time then, but it was borrowed time. One evening, he looked at me and said, "We always said we'd see the ocean together." We had, for years. We spoke about it while washing dishes, while folding laundry, while lying in bed, too tired to move. After things calmed down, I used to say, things never calm down on their own. He died in early spring. The trees were just beginning to bud outside the hospital window. I remember thinking how unfair it was that the world continued to green itself without him. After the funeral, the house was unbearable in its silence. I walked from room to room, touching furniture, as if trying to anchor myself to something solid. The children came, then left. They had their own lives now, their own obligations. I had raised them to be responsible, to work hard, to build. They did exactly what I taught them. In the years that followed, I began opening old boxes, photographs, birthday cards, crayon drawings of our family beneath uneven suns. I tried to remember the exact weight of my daughter's hand in mine when she was small. Memory fades in ways that feel like theft. At 75, I attended my first great-grandchild's birthday party. Balloons tied to chairs, laughter bouncing off walls. I sat in a corner and watched life unfold without me at its center. Someone asked me about my career. I started to answer, then stopped. The titles that once defined me sounded hollow in my own mouth. What remained vivid were the absences. The afternoons postponed, the conversations cut short, the vacations delayed until a better time. There is a particular image that visits me often. My son, 12 years old, standing in the doorway of my study. I was bent over paperwork. He asked if I could come outside and throw a ball. "Not now," I said. "I'm busy." He waited a moment. Then he nodded. I cannot recall ever going outside that day. He is an old man now. We speak on Sundays. We are kind to each other, careful, polite. We do not talk about the doorway. I do not believe I was heartless. I believe providing was love. I believed achievement secured happiness. I believed there would always be more time. That belief cost me more than I could measure. Now, at 104, I sit by the window and watch the light move across the floor. The street is quieter than it once was. Most of my friends are gone. The phone rings less each year. This is not self-pity. It is inventory. Money did what money is meant to do. It kept the heat on. It paid the bills. It bought comfort, but it could not buy one more ordinary Tuesday with my husband at the kitchen table. It could not purchase back the missed school plays. It could not slow the steady march of hours I assumed would replenish themselves. Time was the only wealth I truly had. I treated it as if it were renewable. It is not. If you are listening to me and you are younger, you may think this is simply the reflection of a woman at the end of her life. Perhaps it is. I am not here to instruct you. I am only telling you what I did not understand. Life does not begin after the promotion. It does not begin when the house is paid off. It does not begin when the calendar clears. It is happening while you are postponing it. At 104, there are not many mornings left. I do not pretend otherwise. I feel the thinness of time in my bones. I feel it in the way my hands tremble when I lift a teacup. I am not frightened. I am aware. And awareness at this age is sharp. The clock in the hallway ticks with no concern for my regrets. The sun rises whether I have made peace with the past or not. I sit with it all, the pride, the love, the sorrow, the understanding that came too late. Time was the only wealth I truly had. And now, as it narrows to almost nothing, I finally see its value, not in years, in moments I can no longer return to. That is the cost, and that is the truth. If I could leave you with anything, it would not be a rule. It would not be a slogan. It would not be a grand instruction about how to live. It would be this quiet warning from a woman who has counted more years than most people ever will. Do not assume you can come back to what you are postponing. Do not assume the people you love will wait in the same place you left them. Do not assume your body, your parents, your spouse, your children, your own heart will still be there when you finally have time. Look up, close the laptop when you can. Sit at the table a little longer than necessary. Answer the phone when your mother calls. Walk outside when your child asks. Say what you mean while you still have breath to say it. You do not need to abandon your work. You do not need to tear down the life you are building. Just do not trade all of your hours for things that will not sit beside you when the house grows quiet. Because one day, if you are lucky enough to reach my age, you will sit by a window and take inventory, and you will not count money. You will count moments. I am 104 years old. There are not many stories left in me, but there are still some. Memories I have not yet spoken. Truths I waited too long to admit. If you want to hear them before I take my last breath, stay with me. Subscribe to this channel while I am still here. I will tell you everything I wish I had understood sooner. What are you going to do with your time?